it's evolved a lot as a product. When Sales Navigator was first launched, it was essentially an upgraded account on LinkedIn. It was a premium subscription, is what we call it, that sat on top of your LinkedIn.com experience. So you basically got a couple extra bells and whistles. And then from feedback from clients, there was a lot of appetite to create a separate ecosystem, a working ecosystem really, for Sales Navigator, which then is still tied to your LinkedIn profile, but now gives you a very different user experience, and it allows you to have really two different platforms that you live and breathe in. LinkedIn.com, still very relevant for your professional experience, but Sales Navigator becomes very focused into just your sales focus goals. So at LinkedIn, we kind of joke that LinkedIn.com is your after hours or before work platform. Sales Navigator is when you're logging in 9 to 5 looking for clients. So we're going to go live, which is going to be interesting to do. I don't know where I'm going to go to do this demonstration, but we're going to focus in on two major areas: finding decision makers and then starting social conversations with them. That's really the bread and butter of Navigator. Who do you find? How do you find them? And then how do we start conversations? So let's do this. If I could, can you help me see on both screens? We are going to exit the PowerPoint and go into Navigator.
Close PowerPoint?
We can leave it open, but we want to get it back into this screen. How are we doing on time? We're at the halfway mark.
They're not showing here.
All right. So here we are in regular LinkedIn.com. This should look very familiar to you. This is, your experience, your newsfeed here. As I said, feedback from original clients were when Navigator first started, it was essentially a premium account that sat on top of LinkedIn, and you'd have extra search abilities, you've had in-mail, things like that. But there was a lot of feedback from clients of how could we create a separate place for our work. So you'll notice up here in the top right corner that you're actually going to have a work tab for LinkedIn now. So if you're a recruiter, you may have the recruiter app. If you are a marketer, maybe you'll have our campaign planner app. We've taken a multi-app strategy on LinkedIn. And so for me, Sales Nav is my primary app. So I'm actually just going to go into the Sales Nav platform. Okay. Let's see here. Okay. So here we are in Navigator, which is still LinkedIn, but looks a little bit different. The newsfeed that I have in my Navigator experience has nothing to do with my personal connections. As much as I love friends from uni and my colleagues, their updates about like what lipstick they're wearing to make them more successful or the promotion that they got, I don't know, relevant, but from a sales perspective, actually can be a little bit, I don't know, of a time distractor. So everything from here on out is actually just catered to the book of business that I'm working, the clients that I want to work with. And so what you'll see here is all of this data is actually segmented by the key accounts and the clients at that account. So you'll notice in my Navigator experience, I'm following 70 different companies or accounts. And within that, I'm following 500 plus people. So it's all about segmenting the LinkedIn network based off of your sales criteria. And so let's break down exactly what you're seeing, and then we'll go into how do you find people. In your newsfeed here, you've got a left bar for filtering where you can see things like job changes. Now, job changes in LinkedIn.com you see, but only from your network. Navigator job changes you see from everybody that you've identified as someone you want to follow. We call it saving as a lead. And so these 549, they're not my connections. Some of them are. Some are my clients that are connections, but majority are leads that I'm saved in Navigator that I want to see updates from. And I'm seeing things when they change jobs. I'm seeing updates about if they leave companies, not just if they get promoted. From a sales perspective, this gets really interesting, right? Because if I am working an existing client, I definitely need to know if the contacts that I have are moving. That tells me, one, that I have a gap in that existing account, and now I need to go find out who else do I need to work with in that company. But two, on the positive side, it's an open door into the next company. And you won't believe how many conversations I've started by saying, hey, Fanny, congratulations on your new role. I know you're still getting settled, but once you're ready, we'd love to chat with you about how we can collaborate at the new company. This is a great way to check in. And so I think, in short, Navigator is all about helping you automate these insights. And LinkedIn.com, when you are surfacing different insights, it's kind of serendipitous. If you happen to be on LinkedIn, you happen to notice that somebody changed a job or shared the article. In Navigator, we're trying to help automate this and make sure that you don't miss it. And so for me, Navigator is about a very focused experience just for your sales insights. And so for here, I'm actually able to segment all by job changes of my saved leads. I'm able to see things like lead news, when any of the leads that I've saved have been mentioned in the news or connecting with someone I know. So if we see, for example, here, Bill Chang, the head of enterprise for Singtel, was actually mentioned in this example, CIOAsia.com, TalkVietnam.com. So Navigator actually pulls in up to about 500,000 external news sources that is looking for name matching. And part of the algorithm that's pretty smart is there's a lot of like apples in the world, and apples get mentioned in all kinds of news. But what the algorithms is helpful to do is specify which apple, the tech company Apple, not just, I don't know, Granny Smith yellow apples, whatever. So this news segment is quite interesting from a sales perspective because you're actually setting what I'd also call similar to like Google Analytics or alerts on different segments. And beyond, you get this for their shares, for their accounts. And I guess I'll iterate. The main difference is you're getting this for people outside your network. And if you're not using Navigator, it's very difficult. It's very happenstance to see sometimes these updates about people outside your network. But Navigator helps you focus. So let's back up here. Navigator, where do you start? It starts by searching. Who do you want to follow? Who do you want to find? And there's two routes to doing searches on LinkedIn Navigator. One is by picking the key account and starting with the account. The other is by looking at industry at large or geography at large. So let's start with the first. If I could, do you have an example of a key account that we want to look into? Top of mind. General Motors, great one. Okay, I'm going to type and turn around. Sorry to give you my back. All right. Actually, hold this. Okay.
You can have your type if you want.
Okay, here. So one thing that I would say on Sales Navigator, if the screen is able to see this, whenever you type in a key account name, you'll actually have several different options based off of the different company pages that exist. I always choose the first one. By and large, that's usually the main one. Anyone that says over 10,000 employees is probably the right one too. The General Motors page that says they have 20 employees, not the one we're looking for. So the first thing that I'm going to do is save it as an account. Actually, you know what would be really helpful, Mitch? Can I use you as my
Yes, sure.
my captain and I'll guide you?
I'll charge you back.
I'm going to use your hand here. All right, so what we did is we just saved it as an account here, which means that we're subscribed to General Motors. We are basically going to be following the various updates here. What you'll also see, actually, if you could, let's unsave that one more time. Let's try it again. Let's go ahead and exit. Let's do unsave. Why don't we just go ahead, quick refresh. Just want to show you one integration piece here that once you save an account disappears. All right, what you'll see here is view in Salesforce. So there was a hot question about integrations with Salesforce. Today, Navigator integrates with Microsoft Dynamics and Salesforce at this level. And at lighter levels, we're looking at integrations. I think we just announced with HubSpot, I believe, and more to come. But what you're able to do here, because I have our Salesforce sync turned on, if I were to click view in Salesforce, which I'm not going to click right now, but if I were to do that, it would actually take me into LinkedIn's Salesforce instance, and I'd be able to see General Motors company page. So it's a direct tie-in. What I'm also going to see here is tags and notes section. Any tags or notes that I make on General Motors are going to be rewritten, copied back into our Salesforce, which becomes very helpful because now Navigator becomes your working platform. If we scroll down, what else am I seeing here? I'm going to see 3 segments of leads. The first is lead recommendations. And Navigator, these are people who we think you may be interested in based off of 2 things. One, the settings in your preferences. So when you first join Navigator, you're going to go through an onboarding. And the onboarding is going to say, okay, Mac, who do you care about? Which regions? Which level of leaders? So you'll see for me, I care about Asia Pacific. So I'm seeing Australian, Indian, and Singaporean leaders within GM. If you haven't set any preferences and you first log in for General Motors, it's going to show you probably most of the American leadership. So in your first onboarding of Navigator, make sure you segment not just by geography, but also by seniority level. What else am I seeing here? I should say the second part of the algorithm also takes into account your former history in Navigator. Every click you do, every profile you do, it starts to understand, okay, you like this kind of a person. Similar to how Netflix understands that like you really like the chick flick movies because those are the only ones you watch, which is not my experience. I obviously have better taste than that. But the next thing you're seeing in here is how you're connected. So if you go ahead and click on this. Now, this is not new. LinkedIn.com has always shown you how you're personally connected to a company, but we didn't want to exclude that from the Navigator experience. We wanted to bring it in. But this will show you how you personally have second-degree connections into General Motors. These could be friends of friends. These could be colleagues' friends. I mean, it's a very broad opportunity here, and it's a great place to start. But if we click Team Link here, this is where Navigator gets even more interesting. This shows you who within your company is connected into GM. So in this example, there's 1,800 people at General Motors that are connected to my LinkedIn colleagues. Now, LinkedIn's a pretty big company. We're about 10,000 people. I don't know everybody. And so this is actually a great place for me to start because you never know if your colleagues could actually be responsible for making an introduction for you. I use it time and time again, and I crack up by how often people are saying things like, I'll notice who they're connected to, share connection, I'll reach out internally on our email and say, hey, Fanny, how do you know Mark, the CIO of GM? And they'll say something like, that's my father-in-law. Or, more often than not, you'd be surprised how many times these are personal connections, not just business. And so for me, the Team Link is my favorite place to start. So if we could, let's say see more Team Link connections. And I'm going to click in here, and I'm going to see all 1,800 people at GM that are friends of LinkedIn. So if we can see here, I can just quickly check down on intro via Team Link. And I'll see that there are 3 colleagues of mine that I actually know all 3 of these colleagues. I happen to be connected to them. They're in my first degree. But let's take another example. If we keep scrolling down a little bit more. How about Jose? Let's click that. Let's see, intro via Team Link. Perfect. So in this example, Jose is connected to somebody I do know, Charu, but there's 2 other colleagues of mine at LinkedIn, Ryan and Jay, who I don't know. They're in my second degree network. I'm not connected to them, but because we're colleagues, I'm able to see in Navigator who they are. So this is your easiest way in. Obviously, in any business example, when you can find an introduction, go that route or go the name drop route. If you don't have time to make the introduction, at least do the name drop. But let's say there isn't enough Team Link opportunities, or maybe there's just not an interesting one. If we go back up to the top, let's go back to our search. So we'll just go back to General Motors. You can just click this title. So from here, we're back at the account page. I'm going to say view all employees. So there's 97,000 employees at General Motors. That's a lot to sift through. How are we going to focus in on the ones that are relevant? So a couple different ways to do this. One is by using our filters. So one of the biggest value adds of Navigator is using the different filters to focus in. So these are on your left-hand side here. So for the sake of the room, Fanny did the pleasure of sending over a lot of the markets that are interesting to you. But as I was reading through the markets, that's pretty much the whole world. We had like Latin America, we had Europe, we had US, we had some key Asian accounts or geographies. So let's keep the geos open. Although, since you recommended GM, is there a market you'd want to focus in on first?
Okay, let's go Middle East.
Let's go Middle East. So what you're going to do is add geography. So from there,
By the way, we wanted the first geography to be Singapore because you guys are based here. just sharing.
Singapore.
so
Singapore?
we can do both.
Okay.
Not for General Motors.
Sorry?
So
Not for General Motors.
Yeah. But she's building a filter for us now.
well, we're within General Motors though, so let's stick with. We can do both. It's fine.
Singapore and
Let's do Middle East then. So briefly on this, and I'm gonna have to check. Yeah. So when we talk about let's go ahead and exit out of that for a second. The Middle East. Quickly on geo researching. When you talk about a region like Middle East, some regions are reflected in Navigator. APAC is. Middle East is not. We just tried Middle East. So what you're going to want to do is United Arab Emirates, and then you're going to pick some of the other major countries. So we're typing in our geos right now, if you can't see. Let's go ahead and just pick the top one. Let's start with that. How about that? So what we've now done is segmented within the UAE and Singapore, 421 people who work with General Motors. What's interesting about this in any search and navigator, it's actually going to segment the senior leaders first. So this is a key difference between LinkedIn.com and Navigator. When you do a search in LinkedIn.com, first of all, you're fairly limited by the search criteria you can choose. You can do General Motors, and I believe you can do regions. But from there on out, you can't say, I want to see chief marketing or I want to see IT leaders. You can't segment by function or leadership. What also happens is LinkedIn search actually filters people we think you may know. Because if you think about what the heart of LinkedIn's about, we want to connect you to your peers, to networks. And so when I do a search into General Motors, it's going to show me like account managers and maybe people who are mid-level in their career. It's not going to segment the senior level leaders per se. Sometimes it does, but it's not automatic. In Navigator, we have a decision maker algorithm. So we service the people who we think are going to be most senior, most relevant. That's based off of title. That's also based off of how they use LinkedIn, how many inbound connection requests they get, how many profiles views they get. So in this example here, we actually are seeing the regional head of marketing for GM. We're seeing the VP of global purchasing and supply chain. We're seeing directors of marketing and comms, sales and distributor operations, etc. Now, this is a long way to start though. Let's go back up to the top, Mitch. So there's two routes you can take in Navigator. From here, you can do keyword searching to focus in on people that you want to find. For Up Your Service, I started thinking about what would be some of the keywords that would be relevant for you. But then as I was reading your case studies, you could work with a lot of people at any organization. So actually, it just depends on the narrative that you use. But we could do something for service. Let's see if anybody has something like customer service on their profile. So in keyword search, which is right there, Mitch.
Yeah, I'm trying to find wisdom.
We're going to type, and just hold on 1 second here. We're going to type the phrase customer service. And when you type a phrase, what you're going to want to do is put it in quotations. So this is Boolean search. If you type customer service without the quotation marks, you're going to find every profile that has the word customer and service, not the phrase. So go ahead and press enter. All right, now we're talking. We found the 58 people in the 2 markets who have customer service somewhere on their profile. And the first one might be really interesting for us. Actually, the first 2 might be. We've got a director of marketing comms, and we've got a VP of sales marketing and after sales. We've also got a regional customer experience manager down here in General Motors, UAE. Let's check out Shireen. So keyword searching becomes really interesting, especially when you're looking for a very niche. And we have a common connection. Who is it? Mr. Ron. So that's great. Looks like we might already be there. But in general, when you're doing searches, think about either if you want to go keyword search or if you want to go by filter. If you're looking for something like IT leadership, maybe we haven't done something as specific as customer experience or customer service, I don't recommend typing IT as a search filter or as a keyword. I recommend going into the filters and picking information technology, picking VP director, because that'll just broaden your search. And if we want to go back and take that, let's go back to the former page we were in, if we can. Good job. So if you'll see here on these filters, we have a function filter where you're going to want to pick IT and a seniority filter down here. Now, in this example, we went for a keyword search. Let's go back up to the top. We kept Shireen's profile. Let's open her in a new tab. We'll come back to her in a second. Anytime somebody who looks interesting to you, what you want to do as well is save them as a lead. So if you want to go ahead, save as a lead. They're not notified that you're saving them as a lead. They don't get a notification that Mac Whitmer is now following you. But it actually just helps you stay organized. And you are also now subscribing to their updates. So if Shireen leaves GM, goes to BMW or wherever, I don't know, you're actually going to get a notification that she's moved. Or if she shares any content. So let's go ahead and remove our keyword search. Just press the X. We're back doing our larger search here. I want to show you a couple other things that are really relevant. And we have one question. Go ahead, Fanny.
Just now the notification. You save this person as a lead and it provides a notification. It sends an email to your like own corporate whatever email you set up with, or it sends a ping to your LinkedIn message.
When they share content, the notifications, it's twofold. So there's email digests you can get every day or every week or every month, depending on your settings, or you'll see the notifications or you'll see the updates in your newsfeed.
Thank you.
Okay, so a couple other things I want to show, and this is relatively new in Navigator. So we always had great search filters, but there was a big question of, all right, I found all these people, but how do I know who's active? And so now we have something called Spotlights, and this is one of my favorite integrations of the product that we've had. The first is I can see who's recently changed jobs. So if we click that one, Mitch, here, I can see the 10 people within GM, Singapore, UAE, who've recently changed jobs. So content operations leader, the head of legal counsel. This is interesting. This person actually came from a different company. Sometimes people are just coming from different roles internally. I can also see this one over here, another one of my favorites. People posted on LinkedIn recently. This is a slam dunk. If you're using LinkedIn to reach out to people, my recommendation is to go to the people who have recently posted. They are more likely to reply back to you, more likely to engage with you, etc. If we go to the next one, what else here? I can see people who I've shared experiences with. So it would say something like, we went to uni together, and leads that follow your company. So this is interesting. If anyone actually follows Up Your Service company page, you'll be able to segment by that search. And by and large, if somebody's following the company page, treat that as an inbound lead. I mean, they've actually taken the action of following your org. You could even reach out to them with that message. I saw you follow our company page on LinkedIn. That's why I'm reaching out. So that's the art of searching, by and large, when you have a company in mind. Let's quickly look when you have a geography or an industry. So what you're going to do is click Lead Builder up here at the top. And this is going to open every search criteria and filter that we have in the book here. So, what I recommend is that you pick by region. So let's go Singapore. You're going to pick a geography. Then I would pick by industry focus. So go ahead and click in there. Let's, for today, do IT, information technology, and services. And let's do telco, because that came up earlier as a recommended segment as well. Perfect. Now from here, what I'm going to say is let's do seniority level. We only want to see the VPs and CXOs and maybe directors. Why not? We don't want to leave them out. So now we're seeing in Singapore the 16,000 VP CXOs within telco and IT. From here, let's do a couple of keyword searching. Let's do customer experience and let's do customer service. And again, we're going to do those as phrases. So customer experience or service, sure. And then when you're looking for multiple phrases, what you want to do is in all caps or, OR. If you do it in lower caps, it won't work. And we want to make sure there's spaces between the ORs.
What's a lower cap?
Lower cap just won't show, it'll look for words with or. Lower cap. Lowercase, excuse me. Lowercase. When you live around the world, all of your languages get confused, don't they? All right, we're going to run this search now. 1,600 results of senior level leaders in telco and IT who have segmented on their profile customer service or customer experience. And again, it's going to be servicing the people at the most senior levels. And good to know, most CEOs have customer experience and customer service on their profile. That's good.
Does this mean the view here? Does it mean that we've viewed it?
Yes, I as a Navigator user have viewed Irving Tan's profile once upon a time. Once upon a time. And then from there, what I'd probably do is people who've changed jobs. So let's click that. I mean, I'm thinking about the best use case here. These are people who are new into their roles or new into their companies who have detailed customer experience as a priority on their profile. And so what becomes really interesting there is the message that you could craft could say something like, congrats on your new role. Wanted to introduce our team to you. We'd love to partner with you once you're settled. Things like that. I think the point of using LinkedIn Navigator is about finding the right people and then figuring out what's your social tidbit. Is it that they changed jobs or is it that you have something in common? So let's just pick anyone that looks good here. How about directors of sales excellence and operations at Microsoft?